Everyone stop the presses. Seriously, stop the presses. Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul just won Iowa. I know. First we told you that Romney won, then it was Santorum. Turns out Ron Paul was right all along. Even though he only won 21% of the primary vote, he gained 14 out of the 28 Iowa delegates, bringing him first place for the state. Don't believe me? Take a look at these headlines. Ron Paul wins Iowa and also Minnesota, or at least tied for first place. Once again, the delegate strategy Paul predicted worked in the state where he got only 27% of the primary vote, but gained 20 out of the 40 delegates in Minnesota. Even though the corporate press loves to tout that Romney has the nomination locked in, Ron Paul continues to throw an interesting wrench in the narrative. In the face of the growing military-industrial complex, Paul's ideas of smaller government and non-interventionism continues to prove its place at the table. His base of grassroots support nationwide remains ever vigilant. In the first quarter of 2012 alone, Paul raised over $10 million, most of which came from under $200 small donor donations. So the delegate strategy worked for Paul in Iowa and Minnesota. But could this unorthodox approach actually work in enough states to win Paul the GOP nomination? Joining me to answer that and more is volunteer organizer and Ron Paul supporter Mary Wilson. Mary, could this strategy actually work?
Yes, absolutely. Ron Paul's strategy has been brilliant all along. The campaign didn't just start this year. You know, there was a lot leading up to it after his first campaign and the Campaign for Liberty began. And the delegate strategy was quite brilliant, and I don't expect to see him doing poorly in a lot of the states. Actually, we've won now Minnesota as well as Iowa, but I also think we've done incredibly well in Colorado. I don't expect to see anything small out of Nevada, Maine, Washington. There's a lot of states where this strategy is paying off big.
But a lot of Ron Paul supporters cite the 1920 Warren Harding strategy as really a means for Paul to win. Isn't that really just an archaic interpretation of a system that's changed pretty vastly since then?
I'm sure that rules have changed and the system has changed, but it's still a two-party system. The way that the one thing that all delegates have in common, what I like to say, the one thing that all delegates have in common is they're patriotic, they care, they've gotten motivated to do something positive about the situation of things. And I think no matter if you originally got on board because you supported Santorum or Michelle Bachmann or whoever you supported when you became a delegate, I think at the end of the day, when you get to Tampa and you're there and you've invested so much and you come to realize that Mitt Romney is Obama, there is absolutely no difference between the two of them, and Mitt Romney has already lost the general election. He can't even debate. He's never won a debate before. If you put them on the stage together between Obama and Romney, it's going to be a love fest. They're just going to agree, oh, you and your Obamacare. Yeah, well, you're the author of that. So I think the delegates will realize when you have everyone talking among themselves and speaking out about why we all support Ron Paul, I think that there's a lot of people who originally supported other candidates who are going to support Ron Paul.
It is interesting that the corporate press has already kind of locked Romney in, you know, when you see Ron Paul kind of sneakily getting ahead in this strategic way. But, you know, every state has different rules when it comes to caucuses and their primaries and delegate strategies. How many states can Ron Paul realistically do this in?
Well, throughout the caucus states, yeah, the rules are different in every state, whether they're bound delegates or unbound delegates. But like I said, when you get to the convention, that's when things will be determined. You can't say right now who's winning, because these delegates are people. They're people who care about the future of our nation. And they're going to, you know, not everybody's just going to do what's right for the party. They're going to do what's right for America. That's who these people are. So just because, you know, everybody has experienced it before. They've seen what, you know, when the party chooses the candidate like John McCain, you know, we don't win. And one thing that every delegate has in common, not only are they patriots, the one common thread is, you know, the motivation is defeating Barack Obama, getting Barack Obama out of office. And most people know already that Romney is Obama, that they're both financed by Goldman Sachs. We already know that Goldman Sachs and you know 5 other banks are controlling our Federal Reserve System. We already know that the media is controlled by 5 corporations. Americans are waking up. We have access to the information now. That's why they're trying so hard to take the internet away and censor it with their SOPA and PIPA and CISPA and everything else, because Americans are a lot more informed now. And the Ron Paul revolution isn't just about a delegate strategy. I mean, we got a senator, we got an ophthalmologist into the Senate without a hiccup. And there's a lot more people on the ballots for this election. I know that there's 130 Liberty Republican candidates on the ballot in my county alone who are, you know, becoming the new party. So, or you know, reviving, resuscitating the Republican Party that's on its last leg. So,
Mary, it is true.
It's a whole movement.
It's true. Yeah, we see
us so far.
We see a lot of military support for Ron Paul. A lot of the political action committees for, you know. Obviously, his message is ringing loud and clear for a lot of people, and a lot of people in the military, active duty, are giving him contributions. And so that really does say something that the corporate media doesn't really like to talk about. But let's just say this, Mary. Let's say that November 5th comes along and Ron Paul, for whatever reason, his name is not on the ballot. What then? Would you write him in?
I believe his name will be on the ballot. Like I'm saying, there's no chance of us having a Mitt Romney presidency. It's not going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind that Ron Paul is going to win the nomination. I know.
But what if he doesn't? Would you? I mean, let's just say hypothetically that he doesn't. Would you write him in? I mean, would you recommend that people do write him in?
Sure, absolutely. I'm not going to recommend that somebody vote for Romney or Obama or Obamany. Not.
And you know, in 2008, Mary, a lot of Ron Paul supporters were pretty upset after giving him millions of dollars for his campaign that he didn't run as a libertarian. I know that he was also going to run for Congress again, and that had something to do with it. And people like to, you know, put him in the box of, you were a libertarian, or you Republican or libertarian or whatnot. But would you say, I mean, would you support him running libertarian? Do you think that that's a chance that he would run as a libertarian if he does not win the nomination? I mean, it's his last hurrah.
I don't know
what does he have to lose?
I really don't know if running as a libertarian is the answer. I would definitely encourage him to run. I will make as big of an, you know, support for him as I can, no matter, you know, what the name of the party is or whatever. But I really strongly feel our roots are in the Republican Party. People are joining the Republican Party, getting it back to its roots. And this, you know, after his 2008 election, the campaign didn't stop there just because he didn't run as a third party. That was just not winnable. But he's, you know, very conscious of what he does with the money that people contribute. And the Campaign for Liberty began. That's how Senator Rand became, you know, got into the Senate. And there are so many other people now who are also coming into the party and coming into politics. I don't want to be in politics whatsoever. I much prefer real estate. But I'm willing to do it because I care about freedom.
And Mary, last question to wrap up this segment. Would you support his son Rand in a future presidential race?
Quite possibly. Rand, I think, has, you know, a little bit more maturing to do. I'm really a lot more supportive of Ron Paul, but I like Rand. Rand is great. I think he can use a little bit more experience, and I could use a little bit more clarification about his positions. But sure, he's definitely better than the alternatives that we've got so far, and he seems like a pretty great human being. And I think I'm really proud that somebody like him is actually in the Senate now. I think we've got a lot more people like him coming in, regular, hardworking Americans who care about our country, not career politicians.
It is great to see another politician really on the civil liberties front like Rand. I agree that he definitely has a lot of growing to do to embody his dad and the ideals that his dad stands for. That was volunteer organizer and Ron Paul supporter Mary Wilson.